The rain that night wasn't gentle. It was wild, heavy, almost angry, the kind that makes the whole city disappear under a blur of silver drops. Inside a massive glass mansion on the hill, billionaire Ethan Cole stood by his window, holding a cup of untouched coffee. The man had everything: money, fame, power, yet he felt nothing. His world was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort you, but reminds you how empty your life is. As lightning flashed across the sky, Ethan's eyes caught something outside, something small, something human. Near the servants' quarters, a woman was sitting alone on a wooden bench, her clothes soaked, her hair dripping, holding a small metal plate of food. She was eating slowly, as if savoring every bite. The rain was merciless, but she didn't move. She didn't run inside. She didn't even look miserable. She was smiling. For some reason, that smile hit him harder than the thunder outside. Ethan stepped closer to the window, trying to understand what he was seeing. His maid, Maria, one of the quietest people in the house, was eating in the pouring rain, alone, smiling as if the world belonged to her. He frowned. Why would she do that? She had a place inside to eat. Why choose discomfort and still smile? The more he watched, the stranger it felt. Her face looked peaceful, free from everything that burdened him. Meetings, numbers, fake friends, expectations. For the first time in years, something in his chest moved. Not pain, not anger, but something warm, something unfamiliar. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The image of Maria, sitting in the rain, kept replaying in his head. He tried reading. He tried watching TV. He even tried calling a friend for a drink. Nothing helped. That smile haunted him, not because it was beautiful, but because it was real. When he finally closed his eyes, he found himself thinking about his own life. When was the last time he smiled without a reason? When was the last time he felt peace instead of pressure? The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the question hadn't. He couldn't shake it off. Something about that moment had stirred something deep inside him, something he didn't even know existed anymore. As he dressed for the day, Ethan looked at himself in the mirror, the tailored suit, the expensive watch, the perfect tie. Yet, none of it made him feel alive. That's when he made a decision, one that didn't make sense even to him. He was going to talk to her, to that maid who smiled in the rain, to the woman who, for one strange reason, made a billionaire's heart beat again. But what he didn't know was, this simple decision was about to change everything. Forever. The morning sun peeked through heavy clouds, and the air still smelled like wet earth. Ethan Cole, dressed in a crisp white shirt, found himself walking toward part of his mansion he had never visited before, the servant quarters. His expensive leather shoes sank slightly into the muddy ground, something that would have annoyed him any other day. But today he didn't care. He reached the back area quietly. The sound of sweeping caught his attention. There she was, Maria, her hair tied up, sleeves rolled, humming softly as she swept the floor. Her clothes were still damp from yesterday's rain, and yet that same peaceful smile lingered on her face. It wasn't forced. It was real. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then spoke. Maria? She turned quickly, a little startled. Sir? Oh, good morning. She looked nervous, probably wondering why her billionaire boss was standing there, watching her clean. He cleared his throat, unsure how to start. Yesterday, I saw you outside, eating in the rain. Why? Maria blinked, then looked down almost shyly. Oh, that? I didn't want to bother anyone inside. The rain felt nice. It makes my food taste better. Ethan frowned slightly. In the rain? You could have caught a cold. Maria smiled softly. Maybe, sir. But sometimes the rain reminds me I'm still alive. When it falls, it feels like the world is washing away my problems, even if it's just for a little while. Her words stunned him. She said it so simply, yet it carried more meaning than most of the speeches he'd heard from CEOs or politicians. He tried to reply, but nothing came out. He just stood there, watching her return to work, humming that same quiet tune. Before he left, he said, almost awkwardly, Next time, you can eat inside. She turned, shook her head gently, and said, Thank you, sir. But happiness doesn't come from where you eat. It comes from who you are inside. That one line hit him harder than he expected. He nodded quietly and walked away, but his mind stayed behind with her words. All day, Ethan found himself distracted. During his business meeting, his thoughts kept drifting back to that morning, to her calm voice, to that smile, to her strange, quiet wisdom. How could someone with so little carry so much peace? He looked around his office, walls of glass, a breathtaking view of the city, and a desk worth more than most people's houses. But none of it felt right anymore. It all looked empty. By evening, as he stood in the same spot by the window, he realized something he'd never dared to admit before. Maria, his maid, seemed richer than him. Not in money, but in something far more precious: peace, gratitude, and freedom from the weight of wanting more. And for the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt truly poor. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. Something inside him had shifted. Something that wouldn't let him go back to being the same man again. Days passed, but Ethan couldn't shake off Maria's words. Happiness doesn't come from where you eat. It comes from who you are inside. That sentence echoed in his mind louder than any business deal, louder than any applause he'd ever received. For years, Ethan had measured success by numbers: profits, properties, power. But now, those numbers looked meaningless. Each morning, when he passed the servant quarters, he found himself slowing down, watching Maria from a distance. She was always working, sweeping, cleaning, cooking, yet she never looked tired. Her smile never faded. One afternoon, as he sat in his office, his assistant entered, handing him a report. "Sir, we've increased quarterly revenue by 12%, she said, smiling proudly. Ethan nodded slowly, but his expression was blank. 12% more money. 12% more emptiness. He thanked her and dismissed her, then leaned back in his chair. His gaze drifted to the window again, and for the first time, he noticed things he'd never seen before. The gardeners laughing as they worked together. The cook feeding a stray dog behind the kitchen. The old driver sharing tea with a guard. All of them looked happy. None of them had wealth, but they had something he couldn't buy: connection. That realization hit him hard. He'd spent his entire life building walls, around his house, around his heart. Now he was trapped inside them. That evening, he walked outside, hands in pockets, watching the sunset melt over the city. The world looked different. Quieter, more real. Maria was sitting on a small stool, sewing her torn apron. Ethan approached her slowly. "Maria," he said gently. She looked up, surprised but smiling. "Good evening, sir." He hesitated before asking, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, sir," she replied. "What do you dream of?" Her smile faded slightly. She looked down at her hands, then said softly, "To give my little brother a better life. He's only 10. Smart kid. I just want him to study, to not live like this." Ethan felt his throat tighten. Her dream wasn't for herself. It was for someone else. In that moment, he saw the true meaning of wealth. It wasn't about owning more. It was about giving more. That night, Ethan sat in his grand dining room alone, staring at his untouched dinner. The chandelier sparkled above him, but all he saw was Maria's face, her calm, her strength, her hope. He realized he'd spent his life chasing money because he thought it would fill the hole inside him. But Maria had shown him something money never could: purpose. He looked around his mansion, walls of glass, gold, and emptiness. Then he whispered to himself, "I have everything except what truly matters." For the first time, Ethan Cole, the billionaire everyone envied, felt small, human, and strangely grateful. But what he did next would surprise everyone, even Maria. The next few weeks changed Ethan Cole in quiet, unseen ways. He didn't make announcements, didn't talk about his thoughts, but something inside him was different. His staff noticed it first. He started greeting them, smiling, even helping when he could. The man who once walked past everyone without a word now stopped to ask how they were doing. One morning, he visited the kitchen. The staff froze. The billionaire never came there. But Ethan just smiled and said, "Smells good in here." Then, To everyone's shock, he sat down at the long wooden table where the workers ate. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Maria looked stunned but nodded quickly. The staff hesitated at first, but Ethan started asking about their families, their lives, their dreams. The tension melted into laughter. It was the first time in years that genuine warmth filled his mansion. For once, it felt like a home. Later that week, Ethan quietly called one of his lawyers. He didn't explain much, just gave a few instructions and transferred a large sum of money. A few days later, Maria received a letter. When she opened it, she froze. Her brother's entire school tuition, paid in full for the next 10 years. Tears filled her eyes as she ran to Ethan's office. He was at his desk, reading quietly. "Sir, was this you?" she asked, holding up the letter. Ethan looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "A smart kid deserves a chance. You said that once, remember?" Maria's voice broke. "You didn't just help me, sir. You helped me believe that kindness still exists." Her words filled the room with a warmth Ethan hadn't felt in years. He stood up, unsure how to respond, then said softly, "You helped me first, Maria. You reminded me what it means to be alive." That evening, the rain returned, soft, steady, and beautiful. The sound of raindrops on glass filled the air like music. Ethan walked outside without an umbrella, letting the rain soak his suit. It felt cold, but freeing. Maria watched from the doorway, smiling through tears. For the first time, she saw not a billionaire, but a man, just a man who had finally found peace. Ethan looked up at the sky, eyes closed, and whispered, "Maybe this is what it means to be truly rich." He stood there for a long time, letting the rain wash away years of loneliness, pride, and emptiness. The same rain that once separated their worlds was now connecting them. Not as master Maid, but as two souls who had taught each other what wealth and humanity really meant. Inside the mansion, the lights glowed softly, no longer cold but warm, alive. And as the night deepened, one quiet thought lingered in Ethan's heart. Sometimes it takes the smallest person to awaken the biggest heart, because true riches are not counted in gold, but in gratitude, compassion, and the people who remind us what it means to feel again.